Hello and welcome to episode 497 of the Man That Can Project podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan Stewart, and it's great to have you here. On this podcast, we aim to inspire men like you from all around the world to live their best lives by taking ownership and responsibility for the outcomes and the direction of your life. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest, someone that really blew me away with his story and his knowledge around so many things that answered burning questions in my own mind. And today's guest is Joel Gandara, who is an incredible man. He's a bloke who went from $0 to $1 million in 13 months. He now has a men's organization and is doing a lot of incredible things. Now, is an interesting entrepreneur who turned his challenging beginnings as a young immigrant into a journey of remarkable success. From reselling items in a schoolyard to owning multiple successful brands, Joel's story is a testament to the power of resilience, hard work, and smart investing, which is a very interesting topic we discuss. We'll dive into Joel's journey of transitioning from an employee to working up to 100 hours a week to becoming a successful entrepreneur. We'll explore the turning points, the challenges, the lessons learned, and the mindset shifts that have shaped his path. Now, whether you're considering taking the leap into entrepreneurship or you're looking for insights to help you level up your own journey now, this conversation is packed with wisdom and practical tips that can help you. So without further ado, let's dive into this rich conversation and welcome Joel Gandara to the show. And before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind all of you success-driven men who are looking to play at a higher game, take more responsibility, but really dial in health, wealth, and happiness. I'm inviting you to check out our Strong Men of Value Academy. Now, it is limited to 100 men, okay? We're at about 47 now, and it is a 12-month program where we help you level up in either health, wealth, or relationship. Now, not only do you get to learn from myself, you get to learn from Brad, but community of men who are thriving in so many areas, from 6, 7, and 8-figure income earners in multiple different industries to men who have incredible lifestyles and relationships with their families and friends. Now, we know that all pillars of your life lean on the next one. So if one of them's out, it will start to rot on the other one. That's why we believe it's really important to network with men who have the results that you're looking to create in your life. Now, that is one of the reasons why this academy is so valuable, but there are so many more things, but just focus on this. We will help you improve those areas of your life that need improving. To find out more about that, head over to the manthatcanproject.com and you can click on the Strong Men of Value Academy there. Anyway, let's get back into the episode. So Joel, you started your entrepreneurial journey out of necessity at a very young age, and then transitioned from working up to 100 hours a week to owning multiple successful brands. Can you tell us more about the moment that you realized that you wanted to be more than an employee and take control of your destiny through entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's kind of multiple parts. The first one was in fourth grade when I realized that I couldn't buy the toys that other kids had. I couldn't have the snacks that other kids had, and couldn't wear the shoes that other kids could wear. And so that was the beginning of it. But yeah, I was an employee for a long time, and I always knew that I was going to work for myself, but I didn't know how to go about it. All I knew is that I'd have a regular job and then a little side hustle. But I knew that someday, hopefully, that side hustle income could get close to my regular job. And the day that it did and it got close to the pay, I was able to make that switch.
You mentioned at a young age you didn't have all of those things that other people had. What was your upbringing to that point, if you can give us a bit of a background from your journey?
Yeah, so I was born in a communist country of Cuba and left on a boat when I was a kid to the United States. And so imagine growing up without the language, with parents who are already in their 30s with two kids. And sure, they were professionals in Cuba for whatever that's worth. They didn't make anything. But my mom went from being a physics teacher in Cuba to cleaning hotel rooms in San Francisco, where we ended up living. My dad was an electrician. He ended up just fixing people's TVs and radios. And back then, in the days when you would repair things, not just throw them out. And then he got a job at a radio station, not making very much. So my upbringing was very poor in a very bad neighborhood. And I always knew that's not what I wanted. And the reason I knew there was something better is because I'd watch television shows and I'd see these rich American kids and I just wanted to be like them.
Joel, that's spot on, because here in Australia, a lot of our TV is influenced by America, and it's just so exciting for us with what's possible. And we get a lot of our, I guess, entrepreneurial endeavors from the United States. So I can definitely relate to there. What was it like, I guess, having grown up in poverty? There's always two ways our life can go with any experience in life. You were shown the hardships of life from a very young age. What or where do you feel it came from for you to be able to take the path to going, hey, I want to take ownership, as opposed to this is my circumstance, I need to accept that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that that's maybe innate. I always was high energy, attention deficit disorder from day one. I wanted to be in the playground running after a ball all day. And I had all this energy and I did not want to be average. I wanted to win. When we played sports in the playground, I wanted to be the best player. I wanted to do well and I wanted to stand out. You know, one of the things I'm very proud of is that in very early in elementary school, just barely getting by with my English, I was voted friendliest in my school for the whole elementary. And that made me feel really good because finally I was making friends. I just wanted to fit in and get along, but I wanted to do well. And, you know, my dad would tell me, we're poor, just so you know, we're very poor. This is as poor as it gets. He always would say that, and it would irk at me. It would bother me so much because I didn't want him to say that. I wanted him to say that we were middle class. And he'd always say, well, but we're not. And that was just my hope. My dream was to say that one day I could be middle class.
I guess even having that adversity where your dad's telling you you aren't something that you want to be, a lot of people, when they receive feedback or criticism, they accept that, right? What made you different? What made you go, I'm going to prove, or not even, I guess if you came from the perspective, I'm going to prove my dad wrong and everyone else wrong, we're going to get to that middle class rank. What drove you to do that?
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of competitive nature. You know, when we play sports, I always, like I said, I wanted to do well and win. And I saw that in this Western civilization, it is like that. Capitalism, free market, it is kind of a competition. When you win, you actually do pick up others because you pay more taxes and it helps the poor. It's a very fair system, I think. But I just wanted to win. I wanted to do well and not be that poor kid. That's where the hunger came from because I got made fun of for the shoes that I wore. I got made fun of for the clothes that I'd have because they'd be hand me downs, and you could see the hem marks where you know, they were folded up and then let go as I grew, and I didn't like that. I didn't, you know. And here's the irony: I'm not a materialistic person today. I don't have any fancy things. I live well below my means. I bought my house cash. I don't have car payments. I don't have any debt. My businesses and my personal. So I'm not trying to live a life that I cannot afford. But when, you know, as a kid, you just don't want to be made fun of. You don't want to have the lunchbox that the teacher gave to you because she felt sorry for you and everybody laughs at you over that. And I have a series of things like that. Kids visiting my house after school and saying, "Where are your toys?" And I didn't have any. And when I'd go visit their house, they had a bunch of toys, and that stuff would just kind of eat at me. I'm happy to say I don't know the feeling of jealousy. I really don't. I don't feel like, well, I don't want them to have it. I wish I could take it from them. Not at all. I want them to have it, and I'd like to have one too. But I know that I have to work for it.
Yeah, why not both? Why not both? How has that impacted you as you've grown older? You mentioned you don't focus a lot on the materialistic possessions now, but as a young age, you wanted that because you didn't want to sort of go without go to that middle point of the journey where you started to recognize or realize that the materialistic possessions weren't everything that maybe you once wanted.
Yeah. So fortunately, I did get something very valuable from my parents. They lived way below their means, never made much money. But 2 years after moving to this country, they bought a house. 7 years later, they paid it off. That's unheard of. You know, they never went on vacations. They did not enjoy life. All my parents have done all their life is work to provide for us just the basics, just food, a roof over our head, and so I never had that attraction to buying fancy things, and I always wanted security because when you know, I have memories as a kid where my parents bought that house, but then they couldn't afford a refrigerator because where we were renting before, the refrigerator was included. When we bought the house, there was no refrigerator. For a while, we had a cooler, and my dad would buy ice every few days, and that's where we kept our food. So when you have memories like that, that could go two ways. I could say, I'm going to buy the most expensive things and live it up and never have that again, or I'm going to be careful and I'm going to just worry about growing passive income and being very careful and not. So I had a good start because I saved a lot of money. I worked really hard. But there was a time where I started realizing that, you know what, I'm pretty good. For me, that was about 9 years ago at the age of 38. I'm 47 today. I realized that the house I have is my dream house. And my wife agrees, and our kids agree. And we don't need to shoot for anything higher. When I got to that realization, my life changed. My perspective around money changed. Passive income became more than enough to live on. And I didn't need to keep putting my foot down 100%, sacrificing my health and sacrificing my family time to earn more money. So that was a realization I made around that time.
Was there a specific moment that made you realize you had your dream house and you actually stopped for a moment?
There was, I'll tell you the story. It was 9 years ago. I bought this house, and I could have bought a bigger house, but it was a nice house. It's a nice house. It's 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 3-car garage. Here in the States, we measure it by acres. It's about a quarter acre. It's in a beautiful country club, gated community with professional athletes that live here from a lot of sports teams from Florida. It's the safest city in Florida. It's like the 50th best city to live in the United States. Great place, great house, great neighborhood. However, there always is that little doubt. Well, could I have bought a bigger house, a fancier house, call it what you may? Well, that was we bought the house, and about 3 months later, it was summer vacation, and I'm riding bicycle with my 2 oldest boys. We have 4 kids, but my 2 oldest were, let's call it 8 and 6 or so. Middle of the summer, middle of the day, riding bicycle throughout the community, and I take them as a surprise. They hadn't been there yet. 2 blocks down, there are absolute mansions within the same gated community, houses that are double or triple the size of mine. I mean, just impressive homes on the golf course, on the lakes, just beautiful. And I tell my sons, look at this street. And as we're riding down, they're looking to the sides going, wow, wow, every house is more beautiful than the next. And they say, why didn't we buy a house in here? Could you have bought a house in here? And I explain to them as we're riding, I say, yes, I could have bought a house in here, but I would have had to take a mortgage and I would have to pay thousands of dollars a month. The property taxes would have been higher. The maintenance would have been air conditioning, heating, help to clean such a big house, all of these things. And we could have done that. However, I would be a lot more stressed out, and I probably wouldn't be riding bike with you guys right now. I wouldn't have this freedom that I have in my life. And by the way, have you boys seen any other dad in the last hour that we've been riding through this community, going through all the parks in the community? Have you seen one dad? It's because they're working and they're stressed out. And both of my boys, that moment gave me the best clarity I've ever had in my life. They both said, we like our house. Let's keep our house.
Mate, Joel, that was such a amazing moment and something that I already know it's going to be such a profound moment in this episode for a lot of men listening to this, because it's exactly what I try to instill in our clients and our audience all the time, that you can, when you get clear on what success looks like for you, you need to ask yourself, are you prepared for the consequences or the trade-off of that? And for a lot of us, it is our health and it's our relationships. And you nailed it there with the conversation to your boys, and the fact that you were actually living that, not just talking about it, but on a bike ride during that moment, is something that I hope a lot of men listen to. A lot of children don't want all the materialistic things that we feel they do. They want dads. They want active dads. And that moment for you and the way you articulated that was so powerful, Joel. You also,
Yeah, I hear it a lot. I hear a lot. They don't appreciate what I'm building for them, what I'm doing for them. I had a Zoom call with about 40 guys recently, and the topic was, tell me about your father.
mm,
And I didn't hear one guy in there say, yeah, I just wanted my dad to work more. I wanted him to work harder. On the contrary, more than half of those guys said he was never here. He'd left before I woke up and he got home when I was getting ready for bed. So, do you want to be that father? Do you want to do that to your kid? And the excuse, I think, is as men, we are the providers. We have that caveman mentality. But when is it enough, like you said?
yeah, definitely. For you in that moment, what made you recognize, or even prior to that, when you decided to buy the house that you bought, was it conversations with your wife? Was it the fact that you've seen so many people go in above their means that they've had to sacrifice their life? What gave you the insight to go, look, I'm happy to live below my means so that I can have the opportunity to spend time with my family and my friends, etc.
Yeah. So first of all, I have a very hard-working wife. She was a registered nurse up until 30 years old, and we made a great decision to retire her. Once it raised our quality of life at 30 years old when she stopped working. At that point, I was 36. Man, our life skyrocketed as far as she could be home with the kids. She could be, with me more. We could just do more things. So if that was the case, if her working less raised all of our quality of life, maybe I could work a little bit less and raise our quality of life. So you have to have a partner that's on board and has the same work ethic. Now, I'll tell you this, in the book, The Millionaire Next Door, uh, this question gets answered almost the same way by all those successful millionaires. And it's, my wife is more frugal than me. So I'm in that camp. I cannot get my wife to spend money. How many men say that, right? So one day I remember telling my wife, I gave her five $100 US bills, and I said, do not come into the house until you show me receipts for clothing that you spent all this money. We've never been in a fight in 21 years of marriage, but that almost caused the fight. She goes, I cannot do it. I cannot. All she worries about is, she sees money the way I see it. It's to give ourselves a very comfortable, beautiful life without the extravagances, and also to keep our kids honest and keep them hungry, because she grew up in a way that she stayed hungry. I stayed hungry, not physically. We had food, but we had that hunger to get ahead. Now, if you want to talk about it, I have a lot of friends who are very successful. I have a couple of friends who are billionaires, and one thing that I find that's a problem is keeping the kids hungry and keeping the kids grounded. So we do that. That's a big thing for us. My number one job is a father, husband and father. And so we make it very clear to our kids, all this money, it's all going to charity. Now, they don't listen to any podcast I'm on. It's not true. However, that's what they believe.
Yep.
So guess what? They're very hungry. My four kids all have businesses. I mean, legit businesses. The 17-year-old has $30,000 in the bank. We don't give him a dollar. We don't buy his clothing. We don't do anything for him. He does it all on his own. In 10 days from now, he starts in the U.S. Army. He's going to do great. All of them down the ladder have money in the bank, a little bit less as they get younger. My daughter has an Etsy store, and she spends about an hour a day sewing. She loves it. It's her passion. And she has a store where she sells her creations, and she does really well. She does artisanal shows. She'll rent a booth. She just turned 11 years old yesterday. She'll rent a booth and pay $100 for it and sew for 8 hours a day there and sell her goods. And that's all a result of us saying, it's all ours. We're not leaving it for you. We're leaving it for charity. You better hustle. You're on your own, but we're going to guide you, and we're going to tell you what we think is going to be best for you. You do what you want. And that has been the most fun adventure, to see them create businesses.
Do you mind if we talk about that? Because I definitely know there's going to be some parents listening in and wondering how on earth you got your children to start having this entrepreneurial crack at things. So firstly, what I took from that is you're not necessarily trying to pass on generational wealth, even though they will, and hopefully they never listen to this. But it's more so the skills that allow each generation to create their own wealth. And I read a paper recently where they're like, if you create generational wealth and let's say it lasts 3 generations, every generation becomes less and less likely to keep that, right? Because they don't have to develop the skills, and a lot of success comes back to skills and habits. So the approach that yourself and your wife have taken, did you encourage your children to look at creating their own businesses or side hobbies, or was that something that they started asking you about, or where did that all come from? Like, how did you create that?
Yeah, when we only had 2 kids at the time, the oldest may have been 6. And I would always tell them about my adventures as a kid. We're not a tablet kind of family. Our kids are talking to us. They will shake your hands and look you in the eye better than most adults, all 4 of my kids, because this is what we do. We sit around the dinner table and we talk. And it starts with, what's your favorite part of the day? You. And they're just fighting to get picked so they can talk, right? So we're talking all the time.
Yep.
When my oldest son was about 6 years old, he said to me, and I remember this at the dinner table after school, and he said, I want to make money how you did when you were a kid. How can I make money? And I said, perfect. Do you remember that chocolate fundraiser that the school did just a couple of months ago? And you and your brother beat the whole school. They won first place and they won a gift card and all this. I said, you guys did fantastic. That's all you have to do. We could go tonight and go buy some wholesale chocolate bars at this discount place, and you can go sell them. And his eyes lit up, his little brothers lit up, and they started. And that's what they did. And by the way, at any given point in my house, there's a pallet with 1,000 to 1,500 chocolate bars. All four of my kids sell chocolates. They do other things as well. But the oldest has a relationship with a fundraising company. He buys a pallet at a time. It gets delivered to my fulfillment center. We break it down into the car and then we drive it over here. And then he wholesales it to his brothers and sisters at a very fair price. He only makes like $2 a box, but then he wholesales it to all his friends. The oldest one, because he owns the boxes, wholesales it to his friends, wholesales it to teachers at his high school, who then resell them to kids. But then he also, the oldest, he goes, listen to this. My son, when he was 13 years old, he's 17 today, made a deal with the owner of a bar where alcohol and cigars are sold, no food, where he could go in every day for 10 minutes. At 13 years old, he lets him into a bar because my son is the most convincing. He's a very good salesman. And he said, look, I'm an entrepreneur. This is what my hustle. I'm trying to make money. Would you let me just pop in here real quick and sell? And he did it. And he came back the next day and the guy's like, oh, you're back. He goes, yeah, would you mind if I keep doing this? And he goes, all right, kid, don't harass the people. If they say no, it's no. And you can come for 10 minutes a day. So my son has done streaks of like 5 months where he hasn't missed one day. And he checked on Google and he found that 9 p.m. is the busiest time. He was in middle school and he would ask me, Dad, can you get up? Can you put your clothes on instead of pajamas? Can you drive me over there? And he'd walk out with $60, $70 in one day. So he started accepting credit cards. He'll have you do it on your phone and sign and then at the end there's a tip and he makes tips on that. So we've done this through. It has to come from them because look, I own companies and I lead teams and I don't tell them what to do. I ask them to tell me what the goals are and when they can execute them. Then I hold them accountable to that. I tried to do the same thing with my kids. If I told them, hey kids, you're going to sell chocolates, that sounds abusive. I mean, it didn't come from them. They're not going to want to do it. So it has to come from the person. And that's how we've done it.
It's really incredible as well that just as we've glossed over your story, where you came from, Joel, to where you are now, and I'd love to go into more about where you are now in a moment, but as a result of the hardships that you've overcome and what you and your wife have created and the beautiful family that you've created, you now get to pass that on, and they're asking you questions that a lot of people, one, would never even think of asking, but two, you're talking about money around a dinner table. A lot of people never talk about money. Okay, so for people listening, regardless of where you're at, if we all have two choices. We can stay where we're at, or we can decide we want to improve our situation. And look, we may never get to where you truly want to be. However, what you learn, you can pass on to the next generations. They're only going to compound your knowledge, Joel, your children, and they're learning this imagine if you knew this it'd be wild, right? So I think that's an incredible thing. Going back to what I mentioned just a moment ago, the money conversations, you're talking about money with your children. I never had that as a young fellow growing up. We just, had the belief that money doesn't grow on trees, wealthy people are greedy people, all of that. So I had a lot of negative beliefs around money. Why do you feel it's important to talk about money within your family and with people in general?
Because they say that money and finances are the number one reason for divorce. At least that's what gets blamed on. I find that there's a total, at least here in the States where I've lived most of my life, there's a lack of understanding of money. The government can just print money and people think that's fine. The government can get trillions of dollars in debt and people don't know the difference. They don't even know what that means. People believe that to have a good credit score, they have to pay interest and they have to have all these balances. That's funny because I've never paid interest in my life and I have an 800 and something credit score, which is a very good credit score. That's a lack of education. The school system doesn't do it. Just like the school system, our kids are in public schools and they're great schools. However, I don't trust the school system to do everything for my kids. And they definitely don't know about money because most of their teachers don't know very much about money. I saw in college, my first semester in college, it took me 10 years, by the way, to earn a bachelor's degree because I had a full-time job, I had a part-time job, I had a business. So 10 years, and I paid for it myself, every penny, every book, every single semester. No parents helping, no. But I saw a lot of weird things in school. Because imagine, by the time I graduated, I was 28 years old. I had a business. I was making more than my professors, and I knew a little bit about money. But I saw that nobody was teaching this. In my very first semester, there was a table, and it had chocolate bars, and I was starving. It was around lunchtime, and they said, if you apply for a credit card, you get this huge chocolate bar. So yeah, I was going to do that. However, fortunately for me, my parents had already taught me, get a credit card, earn points, cash back, whatever you want. But when that bill comes, you pay it all. So if you're going to spend $20 on gasoline, sure, put it on the card, but you know it's coming. The bill will come and you will pay it in its entirety. My parents have always done that because they made very little and they didn't have aspirations of overspending. And they taught me that. And so I am trying to teach that to my kids. So as they get older, so I'll give you an idea. For them, saving money is just a normal thing. Buying your first house pretty soon is a normal thing. My 17-year-old is saving to buy his first home, and he wants it to be a rental property. And he's already told me, I'll pay you rent here, right? Because it's $200 a month when you hit 18. It's here, just like my parents did to me. He said, if that $200 a month is cheaper, then I'll just rent out the entire property that I'm selling, or I'll rent out the rooms because I'll get more money for each room. This is a 17-year-old. He's been telling me this since he was 16. Why? Because at 22 years old, I bought my first house. I kept the master bedroom for myself. I was a single guy, master bedroom and bathroom on this side of the house for me. And over here, I rented out the other two bedrooms. That paid my mortgage. So that was September of 98. I bought my first house. Guess when I bought my second one? September 99. My third one, September of 2000, and my next one, December of 2001. So in 3 years and a few months or so, I bought 4 homes. Why? Because I lived under my means, because my parents did talk to me about money. They didn't know much about it. All they knew is earn it and save it. I tell my kids a little different. Earn it, save it, invest it, buy real estate, invest in someone's business. There's more you can do with it. So that's what we talk about. I've pulled out my P&L statements from my businesses and laid them out and showed my kids. And I go, here's the top line revenue. Here's how we're up over last year. Here's our cost of goods sold. Here's our gross profit. More importantly, here's our gross profit percentage. That's what I focus on. And here's our net profit percentage. Here's our EBITDA. It's a 17%. Last year was 14%. Look how we tightened up and cut expenses. And now we make more money. That's very clear for a kid, and it's fun. And it's their own dad showing them the business. And that's how we approach it.
Such an incredible thing. You've mentioned multiple times as well, passive income. Can you give us a quick overview of what that is and how you've gone about creating that for yourself?
So it gets tiring to just keep working and working and working. I want my money to work for me. And you'll hear this from like a Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, and a lot of great finance books. I was able to start putting that into action in high school. And the first thing that I did, this was incredible. But like everything, all I knew at that time was to hustle. Have a part-time job after school, go to the flea markets and sell. This is what I was doing all the time, buying stuff at garage sales, selling it at flea markets. And then a coworker asked me, he said, Joel, I just found out my wife's pregnant. He's older. I was 17. He was 24. And he said, I just found out my wife is pregnant. I really need some money right now. Would you loan me $500? I'll give you, I think he said something like $100 a week. And then I'll pay you $50 at the end in interest. My eyes opened up. I couldn't believe it because at the time I had like $3,000 in the bank. And I said, that money's making nothing in the bank. I can make $50. I did it. And then after I did it, I was so excited about it. I went and told a friend in my high school. I said, you won't believe what just happened. Here, I thought he was going to get excited in the sense that he would want to do the same. Like, I'm encouraging. Like, you won't believe you can make money like this. Guess what he said? He said, would you do the same for me? And I said, do you want to borrow $500? He goes, yeah, I'll pay you back the same way that guy did. And he did. And I made another $50. He told a couple of friends. By the time I was like 19 years old, at any given moment, remember, I wasn't making very much money. I'd have $10,000, $20,000 out in the street loaned. And I never set the conditions. Yes. And I never said no to the conditions that any friend said. So if a friend said, give me $1,000, I'll pay you $100 a week, and then I'll pay you an extra $100 at the end. Yes. If they said the same thing, but they said, I'll pay you an extra $50 at the end, I said yes. I never said no to one friend. I made a lot of money. That was pretty passive income because every Friday they were bringing me a payment and I wasn't doing anything. It was money that was sitting in the bank. That was my first taste of it. And And then from there, I've done more. I own real estate. I own a couple of companies that I founded and I worked really hard in the beginning, but I'm not active in them anymore. And I'm now in the process of actually exiting one of those businesses, and I should be closing in the next 4 weeks to finally get a big cash out, which I've never done. I've always just had these businesses in place. So passive income is make money, earn it, save it, invest it in something that just every month you get a check in your mailbox, whether that's real estate or that's a business that you found and you started and you worked really hard, but now you hire a replacement and that person's the new boss. And you just stay home and collect a 5,000 or 10,000 or $100,000 check every month, whatever it is. That's passive income. I love it. And I'll tell you what else. When my son was really grinding at about 14, 15 years old selling chocolate bars, he said these words to me, and my wife and I almost had a tear in our eye. He said, man, I'm getting really tired of selling all this chocolate. I just want passive income. He was 14 years old.
Wow. It's thanks for sharing that. It's such an incredible thing. I was first introduced to the idea of passive income in 2014, and it just opened my eyes to the possibility of how you could set yourself up for life. And one of the things I've been very intentional with is obviously, business is great for cash flow and stuff, but I've always had an idea of how am I going to have my money working for me? And also with a business, how can I step outside of it so that I can collect, as you said, that check as well and have more funds to do more of what I want to do. And I think a lot of people, because they aren't aware of it, or it may sound challenging because it is a long-term play. You don't just create it overnight. However, I do like the loaning your mates money idea. That is a bit more instant than, for example, growing a business. It really is game changing. And the fact that you're having those conversations with your children at such a young age is just phenomenal. I had to wait till I was 24 to even learn about it. So I hope a lot of people listening to this start having the conversations with people in their life about that, because it truly can change a life. It really can. Let's
Yeah, and also let me point something out that broke my heart one day. I was in a educational toy store with my son, with one of my kids, and there was a boy 10 years old, and he wanted to buy a kit to make bracelets. And I heard him ask his mom, and he said, Mom, if I could buy this box and it costs like $40, I can make this many bracelets. I can sell them each for $2. So I can make like 150. And I'm hearing this kid getting all emotional for him. I'm hearing him and I'm just cheering him on, like, yes, this kid's gonna be a killer. And then his mom says, What are you crazy? What are you, some sort of entrepreneur? Who do you think you are? And she says this to the cash register lady. She goes, he's crazy. He thinks he's some sort of entrepreneur. Oh, it's not my place to say anything, but it broke my heart. That kid was just crushed. And, that was he's an adult now. It's probably 8, 9, 10 years ago. But that hurt me so bad. This is a natural thing for kids. They want to explore. This could be their hobby. It was my hobby. I was making money as a kid. Don't shoot down a kid who wants to make money. They're setting themselves up for the future.
Very well said. Fast forward to where you're at now. So you've founded a number of businesses and brands, and you've gone into coaching now. How did you go from creating successful businesses to now coaching? Was it that along the way you recognized the power of needing coaches or having coaches that then made you go, hey, I have an incredible skill set that I now want to pass on my lessons, not to just your family, but to other people?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things happened. At the rate I was going, it would have taken too long to step away from my businesses. But I started learning about acquisitions, and I bought a competitor's website. A customer's website was the first one in my same industry. I went from a wholesaler in the apparel industry with owning brands, going direct to consumer by buying a website. We could do a whole talk about I've acquired 14 different businesses and I've rolled them up. And all of it, you think, well, that guy must have a lot of money. That first acquisition was $90,000. And guess what? I didn't have that $90,000 cash that day. I had 30,000. And then I financed the other 60,000. But that enabled me with a small step to do something bigger. That started netting me 10 to 15,000 a month, that acquisition, after paying the monthly dues that I had to do for that 1 year that I financed it. Then I acquired another one. Then I started buying out competitors. And then I started making real money. I started making 7 figures. And as I grew my income, by the way, The difference from when I made 50,000 a year to when I made over $1 million a year in income was right here. Nothing else changed. It was all in my head. I started thinking differently. I started thinking outside the box and thinking, well, that might be possible. Let me talk to the guy. Instead of having that negative voice say, no, it's not going to work. Because that's what I used to be an expert at, telling myself that's not going to work. Right. So as I was growing the business, I wanted to grow myself. So I do a lot of Audible. I listen to a lot of self help books, business development, history of business. I watch documentaries on that stuff. So I was always growing. But I remember thinking, I'm applying all of this to my businesses. And a lot of this doesn't apply, right? I would practice things that I preach. I write a lot of handwritten letters, I send those out. But the people I send them to have nothing to do with my industry. I owned an underwear company and then later a fulfillment center. And not because I write a letter to some engineering firm who I met the CEO, he's not going to buy underwear from me. He's not going to use my fulfillment services. That doesn't really do anything for me. But a lot of the things I just kept practicing because they seemed like the right thing to do. And what happened was I started mentoring. I've been mentoring for over 20 years in different organizations for free. And one guy asked me if I could be his coach. And I said, well, I'm your mentor. I'm like everybody in this organization. I'll come in and do these conversations. And he says, no, I want to hire you. I want to pay you money. And I said, no, you don't have to pay me. I do this for free. And he insisted. He said, I'm not going to listen to it unless I pay money and have skin in the game. And that was a game changer because I helped him. And his relationship with his wife got better. His relationship with 4 kids got better. His business got better. That was years ago. And we're still working together on a different level. But I started realizing all of this past got me ready to do this. And it happened organically. I wasn't trying to start a coaching business, but I did. And now it's what I do. It's what I spend most of my time on. And it's my absolute passion.
Beautiful to know that you did it without anything in exchange for so long as well. It is a really fast growing industry. And I think much like even personal training, when it came on the scene, everyone wanted a lifestyle job and heard you could make good money, etc. But when you have people who have decades of experience who've been doing it anyway, and they have their own tried and tested businesses to go with that, so you understand what it's like to experience the financial stresses, having to deal with different tiers of management and people's expectations and problems, and then also go, what, I need to manage my family, I need to look after my health as well. You've lived that. And so to now have people going, look, I'm paying for that, that's an incredible thing to put out there. But you wrote a book and you have the program, The 31 Days to Becoming a Better Man. Why men specifically? And what's all of that about?
Couple of reasons. I'm really into challenges. I've run like an ultra marathon because I wanted to see if I could do that.
Yeah.
I started jujitsu and I've competed a couple of times and I enjoy that. I love challenges because when you put something in your calendar for 3 months from now, guess what? You have no choice. You better eat well. You better sleep well. You better run some wind sprints. You better lift weights. You better do all the right things. And I like that because ultimately I'm not going to become a professional athlete, especially at this age, but I want to be healthy.
Yep.
And I want to live a good life. I want to set a good example. I want my wife to be attracted to me through physical exercise and all these things. So I found that men, look, I love women. They're the best thing that was ever created, but I know men better because I'm a man and I could relate better. So I noticed almost all my coaching clients were men. And I wrote a book on helping a man become better through the practices that I've been doing for many years and tried and tested, but also I coach amazing men, entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives, and I see what works for them. And then we tweak it and we've tested it for years. And then what I did is just put that into a book for 31 days. But it's not just a book, it's a program that we all go in and we do it together and we have a WhatsApp group and we chat about it and we motivate each other. And that started very organically. I picked up a challenge book and I messaged 24 friends and all 24 said yes. Now, not coincidentally, all those guys are multimillionaires. Everybody I got in that first group are extremely successful. So when one of their friends reaches out and says, hey guys, I got this amazing challenge idea. Do you want to do it with me? I don't think I got one no. They all said yes. They jumped in with me. And as soon as we started going, we created a WhatsApp group. We started doing Zoom meetings. And by the way, this is like 6 months ago only. They said, Joel, this is a business. You got to do a second class. Let's call this one 001. Do 002. We'll pay you to be in that one. Wow, this is amazing. Very organic and very natural. I'm still figuring it out as I go, but we've actually created a nice 5-figure business in 6 months. I mean, per month, 5 figures, and it's growing. And then we do so. So here's how everything works. I'm a member in Entrepreneur organization, and I have a lot of friends in there. And so one of the guys was in that second class, and then he gave me a great idea, and he said, "Joel, the class is great, but then it's over. Why don't you do a maintenance program?" So we started a maintenance program in the last 3 months. We have 35 guys in there. And so that's been the organic way that we've built this up, not forcing it, letting the market decide. The guys are giving me ideas and we're implementing them the same day. And that's what we were up to.
How important is environment for success for men?
Look, I've always said that being an entrepreneur is a very lonely place. And then I realized something a few years after. Being a man is a lonely place. And I'll tell you why. My wife gets together with her girlfriends and they go to breakfast and they're out there for 4 hours. Why? Because they're talking and they're chatting. Guys don't normally do that. Guys usually talk less. I know I talk a lot, but in general, guys talk less. They don't express their feelings. They don't express their emotions. They don't have a safe place to do that. And by the way, guys are in a very tricky place right now. We grew up being told, you don't show your emotions, you be a tough guy, you don't cry. Okay, we're dealing with that. We work that way. And then we have a society that now tells us, well, being a man is toxic and that's not very good. And being a man is a negative thing. And if you're a straight man, you probably are a bigot. If you're a white man, you might be a racist. There's a lot of all these signals, and some guys are just trying to be a good person and get by. So what I think is important to create is that brotherhood, that group that you can get together in, and you can express yourself and be honest, and then form one-on-one bonds with each other. I encourage that tremendously within my group of guys. It's everybody should be talking to each other like between now and our next meeting. Have a one-on-one with one of the guys, right? Start talking, because when they share their problems, all of a sudden your problems aren't as bad as you. Okay, I'm going through the same thing. Okay, I'm normal. I'm a human. I'm a guy. And I think that's extremely important. And if you get in a cocoon and you stay by yourself, you're going to just be depressed and not feel very good because you think you're not normal.
Have you noticed anything around levels of income for people based off their ability to get involved in activities like that, for example? Or, for example, you mentioned a lot of them were millionaires who jumped at it. Were they more receptive because of their income levels, or was it because of the development behind them? Or have you noticed any, I guess, patterns or correlations to income level?
Yeah, but it's not what you think. I think it's the reverse. It's they are where they are because they jump on opportunities to work on themselves. So guess what? If you work on yourself a lot, you're going to have a better marriage, you're going to have a better relationship with your kids and everybody around you, and you're probably going to make more money, right? I started with no money, but I started being friendly and interested in people. I love talking to people and I love learning about them. Right now, I'm talking a lot, but if you and I were at a party, I'd be asking all the questions. I want to learn about people. I want to know everything about them. This isn't the right environment. I'm not going to go on your podcast and ask about your
Yeah.
life right now. But look, yesterday in jujitsu, there was like a little break in the action, and the coach was about to start talking to us. We had 30 seconds. And I said something to the guy next to me, and he was surprised that I knew that about him. And I said, yeah, and you have a baby on the way. And you used to work at this law firm and you left and now you're back. And you were a wrestler in high school and you went to Western High School. And the guy was like, dude, that's why you're so successful in business. That's amazing you remember all that. Well, so see, I wasn't successful in business. I didn't make a lot of money, but I have an interest in people and I have an interest in growing myself and connecting with people. And when you do that, at the end of the tunnel, at the end, there's a prize and it's success and to be ability to make more money. So work on those things. The money will come in the end. The success will come in the end, but you got to put in the work.
What would some of those, when you say the work, what would that necessarily look like? If you were to give I guess, a quick few bullet points for blokes listening, saying, all right, I hear the word work. What does that actually mean for me?
Yeah. So personal development, it's hard to make blanket statements because I could say, work on this one thing. Maybe the guy's really good at that, or that's his weakest point, and why even bother? And I agree with that sometimes. Work on your strengths and get really good at a few things. But look, there's so many books out there. I would start reading really good books like The Secret, Rhonda Burns. I think she's from Australia. That is one of the best books you could ever read because now you start thinking positively. That negative voice, which by the way, I had it, I mentioned it earlier. I was always telling myself, that's not going to work. Or actually, I wasn't saying it, this stupid negative voice in my head. So, reading a book like The Secret, reading books like Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, Navy SEAL commanders who talk about extreme ownership, where everything in your life, guess what? Good or bad, it's your fault. Things aren't going good in your life, you probably have something to do with that. And accepting that responsibility and not pointing the finger and blaming it at someone. You start reading these sort of books and they start developing your brain to becoming more like the guy who is making $1 million a year or $5 million a year. And if that's not your goal, that's fine. It gets you to the guy who makes a good income, but has a phenomenal relationship with his wife. Someone that I coach one on one yesterday, we had a 55-minute conversation on the phone. And he said to me, I got to update you. This is like the last 3 minutes. And we had an intense conversation. He told me at the end, time froze during this conversation. And I said, because we're both in a flow. You're doing all this work and I'm just passionate because you're doing all the things. He said to me at the end in the last 3 minutes, let me tell you about my wife. About a month ago, and a month and a half ago, he's a local client. Most aren't, but he's local. And we went rucking in some hills and heavy
Yeah.
backpack, and we're working. And I like getting guys sweating. I go out walking if they're remote, because most of my clients are. I want them out walking and sweating, and I'm doing the same thing. It lowers all the inhibitions, and you open up quicker because you feel like you're dying, so you just let it out.
Yep.
He told me that he thinks he's going to get divorced, and it's not working out. And his wife's just not doing the work, and she doesn't want to grow, and she's just happy where she's at. Well, guess what? For the last 6 weeks since that conversation, he's been putting in work. And I mean 100 push-ups a day, 100 air squats a day, reading the things that I tell him to read and putting in the work and taking notes and focusing on this, then this other thing, creating leaders in his organization. He owns a couple of companies, and he was telling his employees what to do. I said, why do you want employees? I want leaders. I don't want to work forever. So these things have been starting to click in his head. He's doing the work, and then he updates me and he says, my wife is a new person. And I said, what, did you tell her to do anything? I know the answer, but no, she's just been watching me. She's been watching me lead better, lead our family better, lead her better as a positive leader. He's not telling her what to do. Guess what? He goes down and does 100 push-ups. And he doesn't say a word. But then his wife sees him doing that, and she's like, I'm going to start kickboxing, or I'm going to start yoga, or whatever she's starting now. And she's getting in shape. And she's saying, you know what? I do want to read that book that you mentioned the other day. Why? Because he's reading like 4 books in the last 6 weeks. So focus on yourself, and all these problems magically start taking care of themselves.
I love it. For a common thing that I experience with blokes when you may say, okay, we're going to do other things like this, is that time factor. And especially when you're working with driven and ambitious men, they really struggle with the concept of slowing down, for example, whether it's taking time to invest in your relationship because it doesn't feel like it's productive towards career goals. Same with the health, or maybe reading or exercising. How do you help them navigate that?
So everyone that I have found wastes time somewhere.
Yeah.
And when you dig down, I don't accept what people tell me on the surface. I ask a lot of questions. I go, really? You didn't have time in 7 days? What'd you do? And they usually come up with some very lame excuses, such as, well, my uncle is very sick. Really? And what were you doing for him? Well, I've taken him to appointments. I go, when's the last time you took him to an appointment? Thursday evening. And I said, well, today's Tuesday. Have you been with him anymore? No. Oh, come on. Then that's just an excuse. If you told me you're by his bedside, and I don't care if you're by his bedside, you're not taking care of him every minute. You could sit there, and when you sit there, read the book. And when you've read 10 pages, go down and do 25 push-ups. And find a way to get things done. It's all excuses. Do you have social media? Do you play video games? Do you watch television? You give me any of those, and I'll show you where you can have the time to work out. By the way, I work out every single day. I rarely take a day off, but some of those days I do an 8-minute workout.
Yep.
And when I'm done, my body's on fire. That's all it takes. Do you have 8 minutes? Can you wake up 8 minutes earlier? Can you not goof around for 8 minutes a day? That's all it takes. So I haven't found one. Look, one guy was going to join my program because his friend recommended it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a call with me and he told me, look, here's the problem. And man, he made a good, compelling argument. He is the busiest guy you've ever met. He did my program. He joined the ongoing maintenance program that we call the Brotherhood. He's very active in it. He's now going to lunch with every guy in there. And I see pictures of him getting together for the local ones that he lives near. I haven't challenged him yet to say, what was that whole 25 minutes that we spent on that phone that one day where you told me you just don't have time in a day? Well, guess what? He's not doing social media much anymore. He's not goofing around on a TV. He stopped drinking alcohol. He's not wasting time. He doesn't feel sluggish. He's working out every single day. He came over Saturday of last week and trained with me at my house. I introduced him to jiu-jitsu. He'd never done that before. I have a mini academy in my house. I have an ice plunge. We went in the ice plunge. He'd never done that before. The guy is a new person. And this is a guy who told me he didn't have time in his life. Oh, by the way, that's another one whose marriage went from probably a 4 to like a 9 now. Not said by me, but said by him. And he didn't have the time to do the work, but when he found those couple of minutes a day, life's better now.
That goes back to your out of the box thinking, which made you successful in business as well. As people think, if I'm going to fit in time, whether it's for a meeting, training, anything else, it's like our default is I need an hour. It always seems to be like that for a person. I can't find an hour. And I'm like, you don't need an hour. As you just said, Joel, 8 minutes. The goal is movement. The intention behind why you're moving is whatever it may be for the specific individual. Get it done. 8 minutes, 5 minutes, do a Tabata workout. That flogs you in about 4 minutes. So there's so many things that you can do to think outside the box. And I think one thing that I've really taken away from our conversation so far is your ability to do that in so many different areas of life. And just as a result of that, the results that you're getting not only for yourself, for your family, and for your clients.
Yeah, and there's another thing. Double stack activities to be more productive. I am all about efficiency. My wife and I go on 5, 6 dates a week. But a lot of those is to go work out together. So we could go on a walk to a restaurant from our house and go eat. That's a date. But we walked a couple of miles there. We walked a couple of miles back. We ate. We could go to yoga together. That's kind of a date, right? And sometimes we just pack a lunch and we have lunch out on the grass and have a little picnic. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but so you're exercising together and it's a date night and you're connecting with your spouse or your significant other. Those are all good things. Another thing, I had a coaching client, still work with him. He's in my program now. He's an engineer and he's the most organized guy in the world. He owns a couple of companies. Everything's in silos and he rates them every week and he gives it a 7, how many hours he spent, the quality, amazing graphs and colors. And he'd say, like, I don't have time for the dating as much if I'm actually doing the workouts. And I said, do you want to date a girl who likes to work out so her body looks better and she's healthier and your kids are going to be healthier? He's a young guy. And he says, absolutely. I go, then your dates are workouts. You're on this dating app. Invite the girls to go on a date with you. But guess what? You're going kayaking. You're going to, he lives 5 minutes from the beach. You're going to do this. You're going to, that. He was mind blown because he wasn't stuck in those silos. So when I run long distance, I'm listening to Audible. So I'm feeding my brain. I'm feeding my body by running. I've learned to execute at a faster pace because my brain works pretty quickly. So I went from one-time audio to 2.0 to 3.0. Now I listen to books to 2.75 is where I'm currently at. So I can listen to a book really fast, knock out a book in a day or two, and I knocked out 10, 15 miles. And so see, there's time. You could squeeze it in somewhere.
It's interesting with the speeding up the Audible. I found I was speeding it up and I noticed that I was speaking so fast because of how I was consuming the content. So that's a new skill that I have to learn, or maybe something that I need to think about more is, even though I'm listening to information a lot quicker, slow down, because I was just like, whoa. But it's definitely a great way to stack things on top of it. So when you think about what those priorities are in your life, what can sort of marry up and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Your story is really incredible. As you've mentioned, you've gone from nothing to creating an incredible life, to also recognizing in the process, it's not about the things you once wanted, the materialism, and now giving back. Of all of the experiences that you've had to date, what would be one to two significant lessons that you've learned that you feel would be beneficial for our audience?
That's tough. Again, these are such let's see, because it depends. I coach every single person that I coach. The conversations are so different from each other because everybody's at a different place,
Mm.
right? I'll tell you some things that I've done that have really paid off. For me, investing in real estate at an early age was a game changer, because that first house that I mentioned that I bought for $160,000, I put 32,000 down. That was a down payment of 20%. It paid for itself every day because I had tenants. But when I sold that house about 4 years later, I profited like $80,000, right? That put me in a better position. And then I put it into more real estate, and I funded the purchase of products for my business. And, so investing in myself through businesses, I thought that was really good. But specifically real estate, I'm a big believer in real estate. So that's something that's out there. Trying to think what else such general
Well,
statements that I could make without knowing the individual situation is tough.
maybe I could prompt one. I was listening to a couple of podcasts you've been on, and there was a moment when you went to start a business, like you were saying how some people have like spent every bit on trying to get stock before they've really tested the market. You found a way to negotiate to get sample orders and stuff to then test it to see if the market wanted it, because there's generally a difference between what we think people want and what they actually want. So can you maybe share some insight around, for maybe people who are looking to start a service or a product or invest in something, how they can do that in a more manageable, risk adverse way?
Absolutely. So I'm risk adverse. I hate to lose money. So don't think I'm this wild spender and risk taker. I'm not. I do take some risks, but they're pretty calculated, and I've done okay that way. I started coaching a lady who owns a technology company and does very, very well. She called me because somebody recommended that she hire me, because she started an apparel company, but it was too late. Her initial opening order was $800,000. She's never sold products online. She's never had an apparel company. And she invested an opening order of $800,000 plus a warehouse that she rented, staff, tables, racks. I mean, she went all out. My opening order, when I first took it serious and said, I'm starting my own brand, it was an $80,000 order. But before that, it was $500 that I bought of something so that I could go test it. I did not go crazy. Now, I'll tell you, here's the big one, because now you prompted me very well. I have never written and I have never read a business plan. That means zero to me. I'm a small time entrepreneur. I'm not this corporate guy that reads big fancy documents. So here's what I do. I'll give you the example. My son, the other day, we talked about this. The school district where he goes to school has a new rule for next school year. You have to wear transparent backpacks. They want to see everything that's in it. A clear backpack for safety concerns.
Wow.
Well, I don't think Amazon is going to have enough of these in 3 months. So I told my son, there's an opportunity. Go buy a few right now and put up a little website and test it. Test it quickly, because summer's starting now. And in 3 months, 3.5 months, school starts. Now, place a $500 order and buy some backpacks. Worst case scenario, you sell them to your friends, test it out that way. And if you see this start selling immediately, put all your money or put half your money and buy all of these, because the supply is going to run out, because this is I believe it's the sixth largest school district in the United States. And they're requiring this, and maybe others will, right? So I wouldn't go write this fancy business plan, which, by the way, the market will go by too fast and you won't have executed on time. But I would order that. I don't know. I don't think my son took me up on it. That's fine. That's his call. But I would have ordered that day. I would have spent $200, $300, $400, whatever. Put up a little Wix website that costs you nothing, and go tell everybody. Go put it in the Facebook group for the community. Go tell all your teachers. Go test it. And if this immediately starts selling, put it all in there. But that's how I approach everything. Obviously, that's not my business. That's not what I do. But I do other things that way. And I have found that it's a very natural. I like organic results. I like going after an illogical approach. And that's something I've learned from seeing others do it another way. I have not done it the other way. I have not risked $1 million on an idea. Today, I heard the documentary on the Segway. that device never did anything,
Yeah.
but they put millions and millions into it. I don't want to do that. I recommend people don't do that. Start small.
It's genius advice. And I was listening to that podcast, as I mentioned, when I heard you saying that, I was like, it really challenged me because a lot of business coaches that I've worked with have been like, what's your plan? What does that look like? Show me the areas of your business. And from when I went to where I started to multiple six figures was just like, where's the problem? How do I solve it? Let's go. And obviously, you don't always hit a home run with that, but you learn a lot, as opposed to a lot of people are always getting ready to get ready. They need to have it proofread and triple checked. And I'm like, sometimes you just got to take the action. And so when I heard you say that, I was challenged, but at the same time, it made me feel good to know that someone was extremely successful and didn't need a business plan.
Yeah, so action first and then a little plan in
Yeah.
place because now you start saying, this works. Okay, what do I got to do? I got to order a bunch of stuff. It's a to do list. It's I got to do this. I got to hire somebody to handle this part. So there is some planning, but take the action first to see if it works. Yesterday I got invited to a forum of 8 entrepreneurs here locally. I went and sat in on their meeting and helped them with a goal planning session. Goals are very simple. Write out your goal, write out an action plan. Let's call it 3 things you're going to do for each one. But the part that nobody ever talks about, put it in your calendar and invite an accountability partner to make sure it happens. So what I volunteered as my gift at the end of the thing is each one of you, 8 guys, 7 or 8, here's my email, add me on there. Right? Add me on all those actions that you just planned. So today I already had to check in with 2 of the guys. Tomorrow I'll probably check in with another one. Whatever pops up in my calendar, I'll be checking in. Did you do the thing? One of the guys went to the automatic human default, extremely successful. They're all successful, very big businesses. And this guy goes, okay, I'm scheduling, because I said, take time now and schedule, get your laptop, your phone. And he was scheduling a session to plan on how he's going to do this thing. I mean, it was just like, you're going to plan a meeting to have a meeting to have a meeting. And I said, what do you think the plan could be? And I said, well, I want to work on this. So I want to dedicate 15 minutes to practicing it like once a week. And I go, there's your plan. Don't now set calendar
Yeah.
time for next week to sit. There's your plan. Just move. I'd rather it not be perfect because guess what? A week or 2 of you doing this, tweak it a little bit. But don't now sit and procrastinate and pontificate and never get around to it. I think people are all talk and very little action. I have a Latin phrase in my garage, which is a gym, and it says acta, non verba. It's act, don't talk, just do it.
You're a very inspiring man, Joel. I want to respect your time. I know you've got things. What time is it actually over there, by the way? I haven't checked in on that because it's
It's
must be late.
9 o'clock at night over here. Oh, about to be.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say it must be late. So I really appreciate you coming on, Joel. I've taken away a lot from this in so many different areas. There's going to be a lot of blokes listening to this who are doing the exact same thing. Where can people find you? Where can they listen to more of your content? Where can they get involved in your programs?
Sure. So I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, but if you visit my website, joelgandara.com, my name, there's a little button up top and it says challenge. And if you look at that, it's going to show you these 31-day classes. That's it. You do a 31-day class. You're going to be blown away by how inexpensive it is because I'm not doing this for the money. I don't need it, but I do want people to put a couple $100 up just to feel like they're in it. And then they buy the book, 31 Days to Become a Better Man. I have friends that bought the book and didn't do the class. They did it on their own. Then they signed up for the class and they go, the second time was much better because I did it with this group of guys and we got to know each other and we built community. Some have started businesses together. I've already invested in 2 businesses from the guys that have gotten in the program because you get to know somebody really well and now you feel comfortable with them. You see they're an outstanding person, so you feel comfortable. So to reach out to me, go through my website, joelgandara.com.
Awesome. And I look forward to linking up when I'm over in the States next.
Yeah, I'd love to meet you in person.
Thanks for your time, mate.